hosted by your Autodesk community. Our community conversations are live virtual events designed to allow you to gain expertise, connect with leaders, and grow your community network. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host for today. It's my pleasure to welcome the talented Tiffany Bachmeier, who will be discussing all things AutoCAD Electrical and with an open question and answer. So let's kick it off with just some really quick introductions. I'm not going to talk about myself. Like I said, my name is Chris. I'm your community manager for product design and manufacturing here at Autodesk. Just celebrated my 1-year anniversary with the company. And before joining the team, I was a customer and a user for over 20 years. So let me hand it over to Tiffany to introduce herself, and then I'll be back to take care of some housekeeping items before letting her have the microphone for the rest of the session. So Tiffany?
Thank you very much, Chris. And I have to give a shout out to Patrick for writing into the chat. He is in Australia and it's 1 a.m. for him.
Oh my gosh.
So you are the winner, sir,
Yep.
for actually being willing to join us and for this meeting, making the impact to you to join. So hopefully it is exciting for you, and thank you again for doing that. So welcome everybody. I am Tiffany Bachmeier. I lead our manufacturing consulting team for the Americas here at Autodesk. But today I am wearing my SME hat for AutoCAD Electrical. I've been using it for, since the inception of electrical becoming a part of the Autodesk family of products back in 2004. AutoCAD user since R10. I can't believe I'm admitting that. And a huge fan of it as well. We're also joined, and just a shout out, we're going to get him on this screen too, but by Matt Durst, a colleague of mine and on my team, who will help us with continued support of answering your questions. He is also a Vault expert. So as you all have questions, perhaps around AutoCAD Electrical and Vault together, we will lean on Matt for those things. So thank you, Chris, for the intro, and welcome again to everybody.
So just some things to be aware of before we get started today. Everyone's line is muted to reduce background noise. We do invite you to keep your cameras turned on if you're comfortable doing so. If you do have a question, we would like this to be a real conversation. So please, if you do have a question, use the raise hand feature, or you can place your question in the chat, and we'll be keeping an eye on those as well during the session. This session is being recorded and will be emailed to all attendees and uploaded to the community conversations site. Please note that by participating in this session, you are giving consent to being recorded. Come on, next slide. There we go. Our safe harbor statement. Please note that if we make any forward-looking statements in this session, we do not want you to use those to make any purchasing decisions based on that. If you're going to make a purchasing decision, please look at the way the software is in its current state today and that alone. A little bit about this series. Community Conversations provides opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live, virtual setting to share expertise, get to know the leaders in their field, and grow your community network. These sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide the conversation, feed important insights back to the community, from the community to Autodesk, and support participants in getting connected to the expertise that they need. So that's enough from me. We're not here to listen to me. We're here to listen to Tiffany and Matthew. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris. All right, so as we always do, we typically open these up for open questions. So if you all have questions for Matt or I, please start putting them into the chat. We will be going through them in as fast as we can and covering all of your questions. If this is your first time here, we cover anything intermediate, advanced, and beginner. So we're happy to cover the full gamut of everything when it comes to electrical. I believe last month said that I was gonna hopefully have a shout out for all things 2022 in electrical. It is not for this month. I apologize in advance, but I am hoping that we can do that next month. So, and I believe we're taking a pause in August, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
okay.
I have on my, yep.
That's what I thought we had put on the slide. Yeah. So yeah, so we'll probably I will target trying to get that in for next month before the pause, and then we'll dig in further from there. So with that, any and I'll look. I'm just kind of peeking at the chat to see if there are questions coming in yet.
We have a question from Hal in the chat.
Perfect.
Looks like it came in directly to me.
Oh, okay.
So let me read it off. I created a project and many drawings. I then created a new wire type, ground, GND, with a line type of dashed. It properly functioned in the drawing I created it in. I then went to a second drawing and imported the wire type from the first drawing. I drew a wire and it did not show correctly. It showed as a solid line, not a dashed line. I looked at the properties and it shows continuous as the line type, not dashed. So do we want to just turn on his mic and you can elaborate, Hal?
Sure, that would be great. I think I understand the challenge. And I think it actually, so we may have to look, and Hal, as you get unmuted, I'm happy to have you kind of communicate back on some of these things, but I am wondering if there are certain settings, like perhaps did that drawing that you already had that in have that particular wire type already in it as a layer form, and there was some legacy purging that may have needed to happen to clean up that layer to get the new layer to show. Yeah, I see that you are still muted. Let's see if I can do it.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Hal, he's joined us on video as well.
Okay, there we go. Sorry.
No,
I just posted Hal's question.
Hey there,
everyone. Side.
So I don't know how I screwed it up royally. So I made big project, trying to make a template project, as we said to do a long time ago. And I created this dashed line type, this new wire for ground dashed, and it worked in one drawing great. I imported it to the second drawing and it doesn't. If you look in the properties, if you click on the line and look on properties, it shows as continuous. If you change that to by layer, it then goes dashed.
Perfect. Yep.
So I can get it to work, but I have to change it. And then on the first drawing, when I create a new wire and I attach it to the original wire, it keeps the dashed property. On the second drawing, when I put the wire on there, still supposedly the ground dashed one, it comes back to being continuous again. So I've done a lot of stuff in this drawing package as far as trying to incorporate throughout the whole project, updating layers. So I've done a lot of stuff that I could have really screwed up my data of this one, because I went and did the next smartest thing, created a new project, created just the one line type, did the exact same thing, and everything works fine in the new project. So I'm thinking somewhere in my original project, I really confused the heck out of stuff. How do I undo that?
Yeah. So one of the first ways that there's a lot of things that we'd have to unpack with that, and there's a bit of troubleshooting that we'd have to look at with that drawing. But for everybody's sake, some of the things that you can look at in doing this is actually goes back to core AutoCAD functionality. There is a command called Purge. Now, what Purge does is it looks for data that lives in the background of a DWG file, but isn't currently on screen utilized by any geometry. And it will look to see if because certain weird functionality can happen. To give you an example, outside of wire types, a block, for instance, if a block of a certain type is still in that drawing, even if you deleted it. And I'll use an example that will resonate for many, because back in 2008 or 9, our three-phase motors actually changed their properties. And when you inserted them, they were automatically able to trim wires and connect with the radial connections of the motor. Before that, they didn't do it. You had to draw them. Now, if you were to delete that block from the drawing and then go insert from the icon menu a new motor, it would still operate exactly like the old motor, because the background of that drawing still saw that that block was existing in that drawing at one time. And to keep continuity, AutoCAD by default then remembers those properties and keeps that in there. The only way to have it remove the memory of all of those things is to do a purge. Now you can individually purge on items, so you don't just purge all. You can say, I want to just purge blocks, or I want to purge layers, or purge things like that. So in theory, you may have a layer that's still existing in there of that old layer name that had that property of continuous on it. And if it's remembering that from before and you imported the new ones, it's still remembering the old one because of those default properties. So my first thought when you described that was, this is a purge problem. Now, the secondary thought is that somehow in that drawing, something has been overwritten on your layer properties to, as opposed to being at that common term of default, and default would then go to whatever your line types are defined as in it. But if it's been overridden to continuous, that's going to block it from being able to take on the properties whenever you make the changes to a new layer type. Does that make sense? So there could be object level challenges, or it could be like a deeper drawing level challenge of a purge. So that's why I say we may need to troubleshoot a little bit.
I've done the purge.
Okay.
I've done the purge. I've gone into layers and made sure that layers deleted. I removed wires. I purged all that sort of stuff.
Okay. And it was still doing it?
All my 25 drawings.
Okay.
So, because I was thinking maybe for some reason, one importing to the other, somewhere there.
Sure.
So I've done both of those things. The line type override, I don't know anything about that one. So that's a new one. So I don't know where that setting may be to fix that little trivial thing.
Yep. Let me share my screen because I'll show you something that may help.
Really interesting. It worked in one drawing, not in the other. And then when I did a whole new project, everything worked fine. So I think I definitely overwrote something in the initial project. I just don't know how to find it.
So this goes back to just core AutoCAD, but again, this could be, so if you can see at the top of my screen in the home tab of the ribbon, this properties area, see how all of these are set to by layer as opposed to the drop downs of specifically choosing continuous, dashed, and so on. You could do a check on all things, all objects in your drawing. You can window it. You can actually type in select all, where you're grabbing every single entity in that drawing, and then ensure, and I'm struggling because my Zoom panel is right on top of this. Hold on, let me see if I can move it. Where if something was overwritten, you would have this going blank on you, and this is where you get all aspects, right? Layer colors,
Does
layer.
that setting do those settings matter when you're doing the
Wire types? Yes.
Wires in it?
Yes. So remember, and for anybody newer to electrical that's joined this call, remember that when you create a wire type, when we create them in here, the only reason we're creating them in here is to tell AutoCAD Electrical to consider this a wire. All that a wire is to AutoCAD Electrical is a line entity. So literally the AutoCAD line command being assigned via this dialog box that we are identifying it as a wire so that it understands wire properties. That's it. It is truly a layer. So when we build them, if I were to click on any one of these, the reason why we have all these options for color, line type, line weight is because it follows layer properties. I could build it as a layer first, just using core layer commands, and then come in and say add existing layer, and I would just find that layer from my list. So your challenges that you're having with a troubleshooting on that are more than likely rooted in core layer command issues, not in something with AutoCAD Electrical.
That worked.
Okay, good. Perfect.
That was it. I changed that to that, and then I, new drawing, and that all worked in there. So
there you go.
There you go.
Yay. Good deal. Yeah, it's amazing how, so when I used to teach electrical classes, when I was doing that work, I would actually spend, so a typical AutoCAD Electrical Essentials class, and a little plug to everybody on this call, if you've not taken Essentials, you should, because no matter what you do to teach yourself electrical manually, you will have leaps and bounds productivity in just taking a 3-day electrical class. But in all of my classes over the years, I would not let the classes happen without them being 4 days. And the reason for it was I would spend that first day doing core vanilla AutoCAD updating and tips and tricks, because there's so much of that core AutoCAD functionality that's actually intertwined with the electrical intelligence, so that you don't run into those kinds of challenges that are just, we don't really realize, right, that they're interconnected like that, and it helps to find those things. So just a shout out for that for everybody on here. Those kind of things can help to dig in and have somebody guide you through a training class of that. You may know how to do super advanced things in electrical, but it may be that you're having challenges or longer workflows in what you're doing because you found a roundabout way to get there, that just one of those training classes could really help you increase productivity and time to market for the things that you're trying to build. So yes, always a good thing. Thank you so much for that question. I think that was a really good.
Continuing on that, how do I take, instead of going to each drawing and now importing from the original drawing, that new line type that I've created, that new wire type, excuse me, how do I do it on a project-wide basis once everything's already been done?
That is a fantastic question, and let me show you exactly how to do that. So two key points there. If you're importing on an existing project, and let me just share my screen again. If you're importing on an existing project, on the project tab of the ribbon, there is this utilities button right here. One of my very favorite commands, often overlooked and not often taught in classes, although I always did in mine because I love this command. It's a super secret little project-wide tool that has a bunch of different utilities all shoved together. And the one specifically for wire types is you can say, I want to import from a specific drawing and have it just run through the whole project all at one time, so that you don't have to do that drawing by drawing. Now, this is obviously for an already existing project. My other advice is to make sure that you put that drawing label of all of those different wire types that you want into your standard template DWG. So one of the things I encourage people to do whenever they're getting going on electrical is to have a few different kinds of templates. And so let me walk everybody through this because I think it's important. And it goes beyond your question specifically how, but I think it's going to align. So whenever you start to learn electrical for the first time and you want to put together your first project, you first of all need a template drawing file. So our DWT files, for anybody who knows core AutoCAD DWT, that template file should have all of your standard setup, things like how model space looks like you're seeing on mine, what your paper space is set up to be with your title block in it. It should have your standard drawing properties. So those can be saved into your drawing, into the template file, predefined. Why is it? Why did I just freeze? What's happening? All right. Perfect. All right. So all of your drawing file properties in here already, that can be pre-built in to what your standards are to your drawing properties. It should also have things like every layer that you need. Now, standard layer functionality in electrical does not require you to build a large list of layers, because standard, and I need to get back on this one. Standard layers in AutoCAD Electrical carry all of the defaults that electrical is designed to put everything to. It's the beautiful part of it. You don't have to think about layers. It thinks about them for you. The only layers you have to actually define are those wire type layers. So you get that done, you put that into your template file, and it's there every single time you use your electrical template. That's point one. Then the other templates that I encourage people creating is a standard WDP file. So that's your project file that you can use every time you go to this create new project and it says copy settings from the project file, that comes in with all of your standard settings that you would use. Now that's when you're starting brand new from scratch. More than likely, you copy a project from one project to another project and make alterations to it. I also encourage that to become templatized. So as opposed to you always having to remember, well, for this one customer we used, or maybe your customer's internal. So for this one division of the company, we built this one project. I'm going to go find that one again, copy it forward and make alterations. Instead, you have a template project, maybe it's 5 of your standard setup that you do. And it has all the drawings that you would need in it in a perfect world without your specific customer requirements or specific project requirements. And then you just make the alterations you need, because we have so many great automatic updating tools within electrical that'll run through the whole project and make those swaps, that you have that clean project already done every time, that you go back to that, as opposed to constantly trying to copy forward a project that could have a lot of updates and changes and things to it, where you could even run into issues like you just talked about, Hal, of I went to a brand new project and it was fine, but the old one still had all of this stuff. So if you always keep those 3 key templates in mind, you're always going to have a really clean place to start from. So a DWT file, a WDP file, and then an overarching template project that you could copy the whole project forward every time you want to be able to create a net new instance of that particular setup. So that's my piece of advice on templates, but that's really where those wire types should live, is in your template drawing file, so that you don't have to add them to every single project. But if you need to go back to an existing project and import them, that project utilities button will allow you to do it, and it'll run through all of the drawings in your project, whether there's 10 or there's 110, and it will put all of them into that wire type.
Gotcha.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So Tiffany, we have another question in the chat from Thomas Kramer.
Okay.
We saw that one. Kate posted it. My company uses the parametric PLC utility to draw I/O blocks. If device has, are you seeing that in the chat?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to read the whole thing out loud.
Oh, but it was helpful. No, it's good. I probably will read it out loud just for everybody else's reference. If the device has more than 8 points, yep, we use the break function and put the 8 on each side of the page up to a total of 16. We use the module prompts. Yes. Okay. So this is, I did see this ahead of this call. I actually ran this through our product team to find out if there was something to know around testing. My gut was telling me that this was a potentially just a workflow challenge. But they did call out that they were looking into it as a bug fix. I don't remember. I think you said you were on an older release.
Yeah, so we're still on 2018, which we're currently upgrading to 2019. And then of course our company is going to upgrade to 2022 later this year, but we won't get into that.
Okay, 19 to 2022, all in the same year. Fun stuff. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. So I did figure out a solution to this, but it was a kind of a pain in the butt to implement.
Okay.
What I had to do is I had to go through and add the line 1 and line 2 attribute to all of the parametric blocks, the building blocks, and then that resynced the parametric utility inside AutoCAD to pull in the new attributes. And then I put the wildcards from the module prompts, the %1, %2,
yep,
into each line of each bit of all of the PLC blocks that we use, which took a day or 2 because of how many we use.
Yep.
And then what I found is that actually, when you enter it in, when you drop the device originally, it writes it to all of those %1, %2s, which then comes through the report successfully. So it was a terrible maintenance thing to fix, if that all made sense. But it was a workaround. But there has to be a better way. And that's why I asked the question. Is originally when I asked the question, I didn't have an answer, and then after digging and digging, let's just try it. I figured that out, and it was a pain, but it works.
So I feel like there's got to be a better way. Like I said, I was having them look at it if this was something that was, and I think there's an aspect of what you asked that may be a bug fix that is now solved. But I think there's also potentially just maybe a different way of functioning with your PLCs that could support this. So can you, I want to share my screen, but I actually am curious if you have something that you could pull up just to show us specifically, because I want to make sure that I am understanding fully what you're describing.
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Okay, that would be great.
I don't know if I can, how do I share? Oh, share screen.
You should have access on the bottom. Yep.
Let's do this one. Okay, do you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, maybe I have to hit share. That would help. All right. I selected the screen, but I didn't actually select it. All right, now you should see it.
Yep.
All right, so basically this is a testing project that we have, and this is our style 6 parametric blocks that we build. And you know, the eight bits are here on the left and 8 bits are here on the right. And then when we go to drop it,
Oh, you have a very cleaned out PLC list. You do not have all the
yes, I'm kind of the manager for our company as far as all of this stuff. So
Okay.
we don't use this stuff, so I delete it. So
Got
nobody
it.
can drop things that we don't use.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So if it goes, sorry, my computer's, okay, here we go. We have our default spacing and layout. And this is where we have in the module prompts, you know, where I
Yep.
fill out the node and module
Exactly.
number. So, I mean, I can just type in values there. This is asking for the beginning address.
The addressing. Yep. Yep.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, you've been messing with the blocks as you just said. So.
Yes, I'm in a different, I'm in metric. I'm not in, we have different databases for our metric and imperial. So I'm in metric mode, not North America mode. But why did it not break? Basically, let's see if this, I think this already has the, this is the header information. Gosh, my computer, I don't know if it's the Zoom sharing or if it's my.
It might be the Zoom sharing. Mine just kind of did the same thing, although I was blaming it on the fact that I haven't restarted my computer in probably 4 weeks. So
You can see here is the line 1 line attribute, line 2 attribute lives in the header block usually. So that's where that one gets filled in. And then what happens is when I drop the broken version, it actually puts it into all of the blocks so that it just gets replicated automatically, if that makes sense.
So you want it to live in the automatic break area, the same as the other one, but not on every IO point, correct?
Yeah, so ideally, so what I ended up having to do from a maintenance perspective is if I go to my editor.
Yes, because this is exactly what I was going to suggest. Okay,
yeah. So if I go to my editor,
yep,
and I go in here to, basically there's a line 1, line 2 attribute in
there is.
every
Click
one
on module info in point, the up at the top, the first one that you have.
Well, yeah, but it would normally display here, and I've got my
yep.
path wrong. Hold on, I actually know what it is. Hold on, I know what it is. It's my testing projects looking at the wrong database. Oh, maybe that wasn't it. But what happens is there's a line 1, line 2 attribute in every single one of these. And I had to copy that %1, %2 that I write from the module prompts into every single one of these lines. You know, it's in every single one of these blocks then, and that's how it gets copied in. And I just was, you know, to save me from having to, you know, we use a whole bunch of different, you know, different cards, and to go through every bit of this was, I mean, it literally took me like 2 8-hour days to go through and update for both metric and North and imperial sizings to update all of these attributes. I was looking for a better way.
So, okay, what I want to show you, let me show you on mine really fast what I was envisioning, because I think you're going down the same route, but I think because I can't see how your attributes are actually set. Let me see. So for everybody else, if you've never built, because I try to always use any question that comes in from anybody as a teaching moment for everybody else who may be experiencing something with PLCs in general, but maybe not this issue. So when we, and I'm going to start back up out of here, when we insert PLCs, they are inserted based off of a Microsoft Access database. So it's a different database than our standard catalog database, but it is actually one that holds all module information for PLCs. So they're not blocks that we insert as much as they are parametric combinations of blocks of like each individual
I
IO
call 'em
point.
building blocks is how
They
I
are,
refer to 'em
exactly.
as.
That's exactly it. Absolutely. And so when you choose what the module is, and the reason for this, just for everybody to know, is that I might like to build my PLCs with 1-inch spacing. You might like to build your PLCs with 0.5-inch spacing. Matt might like to do it with 0.75. So in order to ensure that everything breaks at the wires like they should and it's all functioning, we build them parametrically as opposed to a fixed block. And that's why to build the database, they are done this way. So just to explain to anybody who may not have experienced PLCs in the past. So when we do this, you actually build up what the PLC will look like based off of all of these individual terminal types and points. And that's what defines what attributes come in with each one of those points and what blocks are used for it. So it goes very deep into full setup of this. But if I were just grabbing, say, a standard Allen Bradley discrete input, I just grabbed the first one that's on here. The things that you're talking about, these line 1, line 2s that are sitting, and those are obviously the module specifications that we can pop in here, that we can define then the individual module prompts, and you have up to 9 that you can use. Those all come as a part of the module info input. Now, when I right click on any one of these, I can edit these terminals, and you can do it from the drop down list, or you can actually see the block that they will insert by right clicking and going in here. So whenever you choose top input or top output, that's when you get the extra information of those extra prompts. So if you were to, on your break, so if you were to define a specific break after, say, terminal 8, and then you wanted, I just hit 9, and then you wanted 9 to become, say, a top input again, or a top terminal at that point, so it carried the same module information, that's what you would then put in and redefine it that way so that it does carry those extra line items. So that's my suggestion to you, is just to redefine it in here quickly, as opposed to having to copy those attributes
that would have been much quicker. But would that, because I know parametric PLCs usually don't play well with their, they're kind of children, but they're not really children after you break them. Would that do any funky things with catalog and BOM reports, as far as duplicating that catalog and manufacturer number that you would then see 2 on your report?
It shouldn't, because it should, I mean, we'd have to probably run a test, but that's what it's made for. It's made to be able to re-display the module top info and things like that so that you can see it. And they are children. I mean, they're tied to one another from a parent-child relationship. So it should see that that's a continuation, as long as you haven't resequenced the terminal numbers. So if all of a sudden your inputs go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you redo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's when you're gonna show up in the electrical audit.
Yep.
Where you would actually see that there is an error under the terminal duplications, because you're going to see that it's now duplicating all of those numbers for the PLC.
Gotcha.
So that's where I would be concerned, but it shouldn't redo it. I mean, both our connectors and our PLCs are designed the same from parametric levels, that they recognize that they are connected to each other and that they're a continuation to keep adding additional terminal points.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would have been, if you just don't use that module info at the top, like if you had seen, left it originally how you had it set up, it just doesn't pull any of that information over to that second block. And that's
exactly, no, it doesn't.
Why.
And the reason why is because when you define in your actual properties, because you could break at any time, right? It doesn't say that as soon as a break happens, I add additional info. So you have to define, like, just like this one has module info at the top, you would need to define that again, that, if the break point is here, that is now going back to carrying top info. If not, it just breaks it, puts the squiggly line, and makes the connection to that parent-child relationship. So yeah, no, I think what you're experiencing, probably others have looked at, and I just wanted to to share that is another option. You still have to go in and edit those modules, but it
Yeah,
probably
but
would have
it's
been a lot
one line
faster
instead
than,
of
yes.
16 lines.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, that I'll keep that in mind in the future for
Good deal.
fixing that.
Thank you for that question. Very, very good. These are in-depth questions today. I like these questions. They're good. All right. Did we have anything else pop in? I think Mark might have sent me something.
I saw Mark's hand raised at one point.
Mark, is the question that you sent me directly, I haven't read it yet. Is that what you wanted to ask live, or was there something different you wanted to ask live? We can open up your.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. I have found, working on 12 drawings from 15 different people over the last 10 years, that I don't have the same wire layers everywhere. What I've done that makes things much easier, as the chat note says, make a standard block with all your wire layer types, colors, and definitions. Save it as a block, bring it into any drawing. Now I can add existing layers right out of that block. Leave it as a block in your drawing, and when you're done, erase one block and you don't have to go through and erase 15 little pieces. This way, my company standards for wires doesn't get changed. All my sizes are there, all my colors are there, all my layer names are consistent from today through whenever. And then it works very well. I've got it in all my standard drawings. I've unfortunately had to go back to my default template drawing one time too many and import layers from there. But this block brings everything in and it's done.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I would not have, that would not be typically a workflow that I would have suggested. I would have much rather suggested you save a template drawing file and you use that to import across all drawings.
I do. However,
but that's
yeah.
interesting that you, I mean, if it's working for you, that's
Well, yeah, that's
great.
the whole thing is, okay, like I said, 10 different people, 12 different ways of drawing over the last 10
Of
years.
course.
I've learned you need a backdoor fix. This may be a backdoor fix, but it does work well.
That's
So,
interesting. I'm curious too, Mark, while we have you tried because I don't typically use this with electrical, but with what you're describing with so many different people and so many different ways of working, have you tried it's again a vanilla AutoCAD tool, not an electrical tool, the CAD standards comparison to see like what they've been doing? Yeah. Okay.
the scary thing is that I get so many different results that it's helpful, but it's not.
Okay.
If you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The results are sometimes so overwhelmingly out there that it doesn't really give me a chance to use it to recover and fix.
I see. Okay. Good to know. I was just curious.
Oh yeah, I've experimented with it. I tried it, and problem is I go into any one project and there's at least 10 different disparities that you have to fix, and then you leave it in there and people panic when it comes up and says it doesn't meet standards and they have a heart attack and they ask why. Like, oh, okay,
understood.
I'll take that out.
Yep.
Anyway, I'll go back to mute now.
No, thank you, Mark. That was fantastic. Always good to hear from you. All right, I'm trying to scroll back through the things, but I'm not sure. Maybe Chris, Matt, if you guys can keep me honest on where we are.
I see one from Austin Nelson. We're trying to update the manufacturers in our catalog database, and he gives an example, AB to Allen Bradley.
Oh, okay.
When we do this, we end up having to relink panel footprints to the part number. Is there a way to update this without having to relink every panel footprint?
I mean, that's hard, right? Because those two databases are actually still independent of one another. So what happens in the footprint database, for everybody's reference, is you are assigning the manufacturer name to then the part numbers. Now the part numbers often have wildcards on them that will allow them to flex to anything you need, but you'd have to change the table in your footprint database to actually say Allen Bradley instead of just AB. And then if you were filling it out without core links to it, that would do it very quickly. Let me share and show you a bit of what I'm talking about so it's not so abstract. if I were to, and I'm not going to actually change all these things on mine because that would cause all sorts of craziness. If I'm on the panel tab of the ribbon and I go in here to my footprint database editor, the top thing within this database is you're now talking about editing an existing table. So if, for instance, the table of Alan Bradley, you want to now be, instead of saying AB, you want it to say Alan Bradley, you're probably better off going specifically into the Access database in Access and changing that table to read Alan Bradley so that it matches exactly what your catalog database is going to be assigning in the schematic components. Because the way that this works, the whole point of the footprint database is that if I were to go into Alan Bradley, whenever I assign a part number to any of my devices utilizing the catalog database, I would then, it's going to immediately scan and it's going to look for that part number. So it's going to go immediately to that table. It's based off of the table names, which is why if you just change it at the table level, it should now find Alan Bradley. And assuming you used relative pathing like you see here, where you didn't hard code in a deeper line of paths that you now have to redo, all of the rest of those from the catalog numbers as well, everything else should automatically update. You may still need to update. I mean, it doesn't really matter that the folder is still called Alan Bradley. That's not a problem. You can have the folders be whatever they need to be. The more important part is the table itself would then map to the manufacturing name in the core catalog database, and then that the part numbers, the catalog numbers themselves are in there. Obviously, you can see the wild card here. This means anything that's 100-B, no matter what the characters after it are, will get this particular block that's inserted. So the only thing that would have to change is the table itself. So it shouldn't be it should be a one-time thing that you change that in the footprint lookup. Hopefully that helps. And if that person wants to come off mute to add anything clarity to it, that would be absolutely great. And in the meantime, maybe we can keep cranking through.
Yeah, we did get one more in the chat right at the very bottom from Ken.
Okay.
Let's see it.
Have they found a fix to the functionality of the tables so that it doesn't randomly change the properties of a cell? I asked about this last year during a meetup. Ken, I feel like I roughly remember this, but can you add some clarity for me? What specifically are we talking about? Functionality to the tables. Oh, I think I know what you're. Please feel free to come off mute and talk a little bit further with me on this one. But yes, I can. You're talking an AutoCAD table. Like if we insert a report of some sort, that if you then manually override into the cell and you rerun the report, it overrides that cell. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
No. So, I have built for the company I work for, I built the templates, the project templates, the order templates, all that stuff. We use a revision block that I made it out of a table. We also have an equipment tabulation that goes on P&IDs. That's a table. Even though I'm using the template, it randomly changes, specifically the date category. It'll randomly change the font size, or it'll change it from the date that I have specified as a 222 to a 214, or it changes it from a general cell text to a text cell. So when you put in a number, all of a sudden it comes up in decimal places, and it doesn't matter.
Oh,
like one can be right, like layout, like my as-built layout will be right, but then if I make a DNR layout and I go to edit one of those tables, then it just randomly throws it off, and I got to go to change properties, unlock it, go ahead and do all my changes manually. It does start to become a pain in the butt sometimes. The one problem I had was it would randomly change text sizes in an older drawing. I figured that out. That was more of a battle of the text styles.
I was just
where
going
it
to
would
say,
overwrite that.
This
But this
sounds
is
a lot
actually in
like
my
the
template
wire.
file.
Okay.
So if I have a brand new drawing in a template file and I take that and I copy for a DNR drawing or a working drawing, it'll randomly, specifically the date one, it'll randomly change the date from what I have the template set at to whatever it feels like throwing in there.
So, and no doubt that it feels random. I can't help but think it's not random. There's something driving that. And it typically has to do very similarly to what we started today's session with around those wire types. There's typically something more than likely that was inserted or hidden in there that's causing the flip to that. But I'd have to really look at the drawing to be able to know, to troubleshoot specifically where it might be gaining that property from. I mean, no
But
doubt that
it
sounds
could be
massively
nothing.
frustrating.
It could be a completely blank drawing and I'll just make a separate layout and it'll change it. There could be nothing drawn into it at all and it'll change it.
Remember, the information lives in the dark hole that is the background of a DWG file.
Right.
So just because there's nothing on screen doesn't mean that there's not something actually managing that. And hence there's actually a table field within the purge command to purge specifically table styles and things like that in case that's happening. I would be curious to dig in and find out if there's some sort of weird table style still living in the background of that template that may be causing that.
Because it's not every drawing either. So sometimes I can go and be perfectly fine, and then I can have 200 drawings do that, and then I do one drawing, and it, bam, it just
Something
does it.
happens.
So yeah, it's
That to
and
me
it's
would
pretty
tell me there's
consistent.
something in that drawing. But are you copying and pasting from one to another,
No.
or you're just typing into it the date field or
Just typing. If I copy and paste, it'll copy and paste correctly. Then if I go to edit it, it may flip the date around.
So it's something in the
So
editor, which tells me it's in the style.
It acts really weird sometimes, but this is just plain just typing in a blank cell that I'm adding a revision, and I go to put in the date, and it decides it wants to change it from 21 to 2021, or and then it changes the text style at the same time. From I have it set as rev text, and it'll change it to a different text that's actually on the revision table. And I don't know, maybe it's because I got 2 different tables on there, and it's conflicting with those.
To me, it's something rooted into your table styles. Yeah, but remember, even though they were built differently, if a table style is attached to them, there could be something that's going back and overriding that. Because what that tells me is if you copy paste, it's taking on what the copy information is. But when you manually type it, it's actually going to its innate properties, and that's what's flipping it. So to me, there's something deeper into your actual table style setup. Now, and some of that could be to core AutoCAD Electrical too. So there could be challenges because we have pre-created table styles around a lot of electrical functionality. So it could be that electrical's trying to do that automatically to force it down a road, knowing that there are table styles we assign into those things. So we may want to dig into that. I mean, that would be something I would actually send a support ticket in and see if there is something that they can just troubleshoot on your table styles to see if we can't dig in further to that drawing and just see if there's a challenge. But to me, a purge would be the first step. And then the second step would be to actually look at what table styles are being controlled by the type of tables you're or what tables you have are being controlled by what table styles. That's what I would dig into.
The purge doesn't do anything for it. I purge my drawings on an hourly basis sometimes.
Okay.
To wipe out blocks and stuff.
Okay.
But like I said, I built 2 different tables and at 2 different blocks, and they just seem to, I don't know if they're fighting against each other or not.
They might be, or you just may need to create a second table style. Like you may need to be able to create one that will tell it, like on this table, I want it to utilize this table style and not.
Oh, I did. I did. So it's just, and that's why I'm still wondering why I'm getting these problems. And I've been dealing with it, but it's just funny. Well, and annoying at the same time.
Yeah, understood. Absolutely. And if the tables are still living in the drawing, the purge isn't going to clean that up. So it may be that the 2 tables are trying to mimic each other. Yeah, we may just need to look at how they're being managed and if they have similar naming conventions and that's why one's overriding the other one. We might just have to dig into that, because to me that is, it probably feels very random, but there's probably a very direct reason in the background that that's happening. And we would just have to dig in a little bit closer. Good question. And definitely let's throw that in through support, because I think that's something that we could troubleshoot together. It doesn't sound like it's a workflow issue. It sounds like it's something we may just need to troubleshoot. All right. I know I need to save you a couple minutes, Chris, at the end. Is there maybe one more question we could do? Or Matt, if you're watching this?
Yeah, I actually saw one. I don't know if it got answered from Nathan. He had an AEC question. He said, I'm wondering if AutoCAD Electrical can be used for low voltage riser one-line creation, security, AV, fire alarm, etc. Not sure if we answered that one.
No, I don't think we have. And we do get asked these questions quite a bit. So we do, let's unpack your question in twofold. Yes, it could. Is it the right thing? Maybe, maybe not. We do have a lot of MEP tools here at Autodesk with AutoCAD MEP. There's also Revit MEP tools and other things that could handle some of that, potentially depending on what you're looking to do, in a better way than, and more supportive of connection to all other things AEC that you may want more so than this, which was really defined for controls design. However, many people do, based off of the reporting tools we can pull and a lot of the other things that electrical provides, actually try to stretch it to be used in AEC applications and things like that. And you absolutely could. In a lot of cases, when I have people that want to do things like that around low voltage, it's really around defining your wire layers to be read that way, so that you can define, if you want to define that separately from, say, some of the other standard wiring connections, you would define it based off of a layer basis of, these are Cat 5s, or this is, so for dealing with Ethernet and dealing with other kinds of low voltage wiring, you can absolutely do that. And we do have one lines. We do have quite a bit of functionality in there to support that and cover that. Well, you may not have as many blocks in the symbol library that you need for specifically what you're doing, but there may be quite a bit that you could utilize that could bend easily to it. So those would be my things that I would want to dig into to just make sure that you're utilizing the best tool for what you need. But the answer is yes. I would just also explore some of the MEP tools as well. I do see Tracy's message that just popped in here. Will electrical and P&ID ever share data exporting Excel and such? The short answer is no. The longer answer is there are a couple different workflows. So AutoCAD Electrical, if you didn't know it, and I'll do this will probably be the last one because I know I need to kick this over to you, Chris. But AutoCAD Electrical actually does have, in the schematic tab, it automatically comes with what we call pure devices and symbol libraries. So we have in this little, I know it's probably hard to see on my screen, we have pneumatic components, hydraulic components, and P&ID. So we actually have an entire set of P&ID symbols that you can actually connect automatically to your schematic drawings. You can actually do tag where we have something, it's called peer-to-peer connections, where your schematics and those P&ID symbols can be connected to one another through peer device connections, and everything can then be done inside the same projects as opposed to them being done in disparate systems. So a lot of times I speak with customers who have been using P&ID, AutoCAD P&ID, but actually when they're using electrical too, decide they're just going to use the P&ID tools within electrical because they can keep everything together. So obviously, both products are DWG file based. They can be shared that way, but the catalogs and other connections and things are not shared across them. So that's the kind of short and long answer there. You're not alone in asking that questions, and we do have, I mean, as of late, we're now being asked about Plant 3D and AutoCAD Electrical and connections there. So there's more ongoing discussions with that, and I am in fairly consistent communication with the product teams around, what opportunities do we have to look at some of these expansion opportunities or connection opportunities across the platform. All right. So thank you everybody for all of the questions and the support. And Chris, over to you.
All right, I'm going to share again for just a couple more slides before we say goodbye to everyone. So thanks everyone for coming. We put up Tiffany's upcoming schedule for these events. I crossed off today's, obviously. We usually meet on the second Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So our next session should be July 8th. And Kate has put the link in the chat to be able to RSVP for this. And we will be taking a break in August and coming back in September. So hope to see you keep coming to these. Are you looking for any other way to connect with us in the Autodesk community? We've got a couple of slides here with some information for you. So you can always explore the various communities, including the global network of user groups in the Autodesk Group Network, our industry-focused communities, the Autodesk forums, of course, that's always the big one, and stay connected with us on Twitter and Facebook, including several new Facebook groups that we've created for AutoCAD, I was listing the groups. Inventor, Fusion 360, Vault, AutoCAD, and Revit are the 5 Facebook groups that we currently have. So thank you for attending today. We welcome your feedback. When Kate sends out the email to all of the attendees today, there will be a survey, and we would really love to hear what you think about these surveys, about these sessions, what's going well, what's not going well, what we could do better. We hope to see you stay connected in the Autodesk community, and we hope to see you back here next month. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.